The Thimble. She had not seen her husband for 10 months, not since her fortnight's honeymoon with him and his departure for France. Then, in those excited days of the early war, he was her comrade, her counterpart in a sort of back-itch revel before death. Now all that was shut off from her mind, as by a great rent in her life. Since then, since the honeymoon, she had lived and died and come to life again. There had been his departure to the front. She had loved him then. "If you want to love your husband," she'd said to her friends with splendid recklessness, "you should see him in khaki." And she had really loved him. He was so handsome in uniform, well built, yet with a sort of reserve and remoteness that suited the neutral khaki perfectly. Before, as a barrister with nothing to do, he had been slack and unconvincing, a sort of hanger-on, and she had never come to the point of marrying him. For one thing, they neither of them had enough money. Then came the great shock of the war, his coming to her in a new light, as lieutenant in the artillery, and she'd been carried away by his perfect calm manliness and significance now he was a soldier. He seemed to have gained a fascinating importance that made her seem quite unimportant. It was she who was insignificant and subservient, he who was dignified, with a sort of indifferent lordliness. So she had married him, all considerations flung to the wind, and had known the bewildering experience of their fortnight's honeymoon before he left her for the front. And she had never got over the bewilderment. She had, since then, never thought at all. She seemed to have rushed on in a storm of activity and sensation. There was a home to make, and no money to make it with, none to speak of. So, with the swift business-like aptitude of a startled woman, she had found a small flat in Mayfair, had attended sales and bought suitable furniture, had made the place complete and perfect. She was satisfied. It was small and insignificant, but it was a complete unity. Then she had had a certain amount of war work to do, and she had kept up all her social activities. She had not had a moment which was not urgently occupied. All the while came his letters from France, and she was writing her replies. They both sent a good deal of news to each other. They both expressed their mutual passion. Then, suddenly, amid all this activity, she fell ill with pneumonia, and everything lapsed into delirium. And whilst she was ill, he was wounded, his jaw smashed, and his face cut up by the bursting of a shell. So they were both laid by. Now they were both better, and she was waiting to see him. Since she'd been ill, while she had lain or sat in her room in the castle in Scotland, she had thought very much. For she was a woman who was always trying to grasp the whole of her context, always trying to make a complete thing of her own life. Her illness lay between her and her previous life like a dark night, like a great separation. She looked back, she remembered all she had done, and she was bewildered. She had no key to the puzzle. Suddenly she realized that she knew nothing of this man she had married. He knew nothing of her. What she had of him vividly was the visual image. She could see him, the whole of him, in her mind's eye. She could remember him with peculiar distinctness, as if the whole of his body were lit up by an intense light, and the image fixed on her mind. But he was an impression, only a vivid impression. What her own impression was, she knew most vividly. But what he was himself, the very thought startled her. It was like looking into a perilous darkness.